Let me tell you a story about Benjamin Franklin. When he was serving America in Paris in the years between the American Revolution and the Constitution, he was approached by the Apostolic Nuncio, the Pope's ambassador. And the Nuncio asked Franklin, what do you think about having a bishop sent to America, appointed to America, and whom would the Continental Congress like it to be? The response of the Continental Congress and of Franklin to the Nuncio was, this is really not a matter for the National Congress. This is a matter for the spiritual authority and maybe to the individual states, but we're going to stay out of it. And that story really set the precedent for America's relationship with the Catholic hierarchy throughout our history. In some ways, it anticipated the relationship between the Holy See and the rest of the world and the Pope's universal jurisdiction that was clearly articulated in Vatican I at the end of the 19th century. Alexis de Tocqueville, the French political philosopher who visited America and wrote Democracy in America, noted in a private letter to a friend that something he found remarkable about the Catholic Church in America was how closely united they were to the Pope. And he credited this partly to the poverty of the American church, because it was very much a small church, an immigrant church, without a lot of resources. And so in some ways they depended financially on the Holy See. But also it was based on this idea that the Pope was totally free to appoint bishops in the United States in a way that he was not free in many other parts of the old world, where the Pope had made various treaties with political regimes that gave the political regime some role in the appointment of bishops. And so the Pope's hand was much freer in America and in the American church than it was in many other parts of the world. Pope Leo XIII was Pope at the end of the 19th century, and he had some concern for the church in America and sent some letters to the American bishops. And one thing that he really appreciated about the American political regime was that America's laws were not hostile to the Catholic religion and were not hostile to the Catholic hierarchy. He also really admired the place of religion and the thought of especially George Washington and America's founders. So even though America wasn't the highest ideal for Pope Leo XIII, it had several good things going for it. The American bishops at the end of the 19th century took note of the different philosophic strands influencing the American political project, and they argued that American institutions and the American founders built better than they knew, which to the bishops at the end of the 19th century meant that they relied upon this implicit natural law tradition, and that it's that natural law tradition that will support the goodness and longevity of American political institutions. In the mid-20th century, the most important American Catholic public intellectual was named John Courtney Murray. He was a Jesuit priest. In the year of Kennedy's election, he actually made the cover of Time magazine. He was a well-known figure, and he was even influential in the first couple years of the Second Vatican Council. Murray argued that there was an American consensus about the founding principles in America that was compatible with Catholic political thought. But he thought that this consensus was in danger and that it had to be preserved, especially with the contributions of Catholic citizens. So what was this American consensus according to John Courtney Murray? Well, it was the idea that we were one nation under God, that we were endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that our institutions and our laws functioned under natural law, that the consent of the American people was based on reason, not just on passions and hedonistic impulses. And finally, that it was important for Americans to be a virtuous people. Those were the core elements, according to Murray, of this American consensus about America's founding principles that was essential to preserve in the 20th century, and probably also for our own day. The successors of Peter, in their visits to America, have also taken note of our political principles, and they've really emphasized the parts that they think are consistent with Catholic political thought and Catholic doctrine. For example, St. John Paul II, when he made his first trip to America as Pope to Philadelphia, he commented on the Liberty Bell, and he said he liked the fact that our Liberty Bell has his Bible verse on it. He also talked about our Declaration of Independence and emphasized the connection between our founding principles and Catholic truth. Here's what he said about the Declaration. Philadelphia is the city of the Declaration of Independence, that remarkable document containing a solemn attestation of the equality of all human beings, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, expressing a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. These are the sound moral principles formulated by your founding fathers and enshrined forever in your history. In the human and civil values that are contained in the spirit of this declaration, there are easily recognized strong connections with basic religious and Christian values. Our more recent popes have said similar things about America's founding principles. When Pope Benedict XVI visited America, visited the White House back in 2008, he said the following: "From the dawn of the Republic, America's quest for freedom has been guided by the conviction that the principles governing political and social life are intimately linked to a moral order based on the dominion of God, the Creator." Pope Francis has also referred favorably to the principles of our Declaration of Independence. When he came to America for the World Meeting of Families and gave a speech to the joint session of Congress for the first time in our history, he brought up the principles of the Declaration of Independence and seemed to connect them to the principle of the dignity of the human person. Here's what he said: "All political activity must serve and promote the good of the human person and be based on respect for his or her dignity. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." So these favorable comments from St. John Paul II, from Pope Benedict, and from Pope Francis about our Declaration of Independence don't mean that the popes thought that whatever the American people wanted to do with their freedom was totally fine. They, in fact, thought that American freedom was only safe so long as it maintained its connection to the truth, so long as it maintained its connection to natural law, so long as it maintained its connection to the sovereignty of God. So freedom for the popes has to be understood in connection to the truth. And today, American Catholics have a special role, a special responsibility, an essential role to play in ensuring that our political institutions maintain this reliance on truth, this connection to the natural law, this connection to the sovereignty of God. We have that role to play in this country because the health, the longevity, the goodness of our political institutions and our political principles ultimately depend on this connection between American freedom and the truth. Thank you for watching this first episode of Faith in the Founding from Benedictine College. You can watch the full series right now by visiting our Media and Culture page. When you subscribe, you'll get all the latest podcasts, articles, and documentaries delivered right to your inbox every week. That's media.benedictine.edu.